You got like 3 feet of air that time.
Hey friends, it's me, Micah. This is the Homestead Bandwagon, and this is a robot lawn mower. Scratch that, lawn maintainer. I'm going to talk to you about why this thing's a lawn maintainer. This is the Sunseeker X series, X-ray. I think it's an X7 is what they call it. I've watched a lot of lawnmower reviews for these robot lawnmowers, and I've always noticed that they have one thing in common, well, two things. One is that these people have really nice lawns. I don't have a really nice lawn. And I've also noticed that half their lawns look dead. This place is green and verdant. We're out in the Pacific Northwest. It is very hard to stay on top of our mowing and our weeding and our weed eating. And you'll see around here, this place always looks like a wreck, but I love it. But will this thing help me do one job faster, which is just keep the grass mowed? We're going to talk about setting this thing up. We're going to talk about how it works, if it works, things I like, some things I really didn't like about it, and just who this machine's really for. We're going to talk about that today. So let's get into it. All right, it's been about 2 weeks with the mower. Let's come up with a verdict. But before we do that, let's talk about the setup process, how the mower works, how it worked around here, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. As far as setup goes, the very first thing you do with this machine is you download an app onto your phone. And you're going to spend a lot of time with the phone in front of your face, going through prompts and stuff where it tells you what to do. Just starting from taking the thing out of the box. And the app does a very good job of just walking you through everything. Before even setting up the mower, you have to set up an antenna. This machine uses what's called RTK for location. So RTK is a standalone antenna. An antenna, basically satellite antenna in the robot mower itself, and then satellites up in space. So you have to set up your outside antenna with nothing above it. So it has to have a clear view to the sky. So you can either put it on the ground, on the roof of your house, which I think a lot of people would do, or on the wall of your house, and you can angle it so it'll face the sky. But you have to have a clear view of the sky for the antenna and for the mower itself. So where the mower dock sits, the thing that charges the mower, that needs a clear view of the sky as well. So you can't put that under cover, under the eaves of your house. It just has to be out in the open. So locating those things can be a bit of a task. And then there's a couple other fiddly things you do with the app. And then the big thing you got to do is you have to go mow. If your grass is more than 6 inches tall, you're not going to use this thing to mow down that grass. So you have to go out and get an initial cut done. And then you're able to use the robot mower to maintain that cut level or get it a little bit shorter. But you are going to have to go out and mow before setting up this lawnmower to do the mowing. After you do that, you jump on the app or stay on the app and walk around your property. You map out the area where the machine's going to have to mow. You can map out no-go zones where it shouldn't mow, like garden beds or gravel driveways perhaps. Or septic tank lids or gazebos, whatever. Tell it, hey, don't mow here. Initially, I didn't tell it any no-go areas. It just kind of bumbled around and figured out things by itself. But I found it was easier to set up no-go areas. And then you could set up zones as well. We can have multiple different areas or yards where the thing you want it to mow, and it will move from place to place, mowing them. You set up pathways between those things. You set up pathways for it to get back to its charging station. Really, really easy to use, pretty intuitive application process where you can monitor that mower no matter where you're at. Now, part of that is the mower can either use, it appears, cell phone signals, which I didn't get a good explanation on when I borrowed this. So I don't know, I guess you don't pay for it initially, maybe you would in the future. But what it really likes is a Wi-Fi signal. I do have a conspiracy theory involving these cell phone and Wi-Fi signals. We're going to get into that. But if you have a bigger property, how do you get Wi-Fi to stretch all over your property? I did do a video on that. I will put a link in the description of this video for how to get Wi-Fi everywhere using a big Wi-Fi extender setup that I did here to get 5 acres of Wi-Fi. So you want to have Wi-Fi connection all the time with the antenna, and I believe also the mower. They both have to have Wi-Fi coverage wherever they're at. So it is part of the setup process. So kind of the last thing you end up doing is setting up a schedule for the mower. So you tell it, hey, I want you to mow the whole place from X to X time, or I want you to mow zone A from this time to this time, zone B from this time to this time, zone C from this time to this time. So if you do have areas where you're often at, where you don't want the mower mowing around you, you can tell it, hey, don't mow that area right now. We want you to mow it on from 2 to 4 p.m. That's when we use this area for our barbecue grill parties or whatever. So setting up that schedule, really convenient, and you can individualize your schedules per zone. Day or night, by the way, and we will talk about that as well. So let's talk about how the mower really works, because like I said, it's not really a mower, it's a maintainer. You have to go out and initially mow your grass. That's just what you have to do, and then this thing maintains that mowing. How it does that is by mowing every day, based on what I saw. It just goes out and takes a little bit of grass off at a time, mowing every single day. You can set it up to mow day or night. For example, I set it up to mow for the most part at night because my dog loves this thing. Mostly loves chasing it and barking at it and biting it. So I set it up to mow at night so she couldn't bother it. But that is what it does. It just mows all day, every day. It's a little trooper. It goes out and mows for a bit, goes back to its docking station to recharge, goes out for a little bit more, goes back to the docking station, always just returning to where it was in its mowing pattern. And speaking of patterns, it does mow stripes in the lawn. So if you're into that, it does do that. About a 14-inch wide cut, which you can narrow or widen. You can also change the speed of the blades. Pretty interesting. Speaking of blades, this is not using regular lawnmower blades. This is using like little razor blades. And the razor blades you're going to change out maybe every once a month. Depends on how much grass you're cutting and the type of grass you have. So there is some maintenance required there for changing out those blades, and also some maintenance for cleaning out the unit. Like around here, it's kind of wet out. A lot of grass sticks to the inside of it. You're going to have to get in there and clean that out every now and then. But that is how it works. Goes out, mows, goes back, charges itself out and keeps on going. The thing's a little trooper. It just never quits. It comes up against objects. It can't figure out what they are. The little camera array says, oh, it looks like a beach ball. It moves itself on around that beach ball and keeps going. The next time it gets to that area, it slows down a little bit. Hey, the ball's gone. We're going to keep on mowing. So this thing just never gives up. It has a lot of tenacity and mows the areas that you tell it to mow and stays away from the areas you tell it not to mow. Now, how it gets around is by using what they call all-wheel drive. So there's 2 rear wheels and 1 front wheel. The front wheel is what steers the machine, and the rear wheels propel it just like you'd normally expect. But the front wheel does have power. I find that my lawn isn't all that nice, and there's a lot of holes and lumps and bumps in it. And this machine will kind of detect when it's going downhill and kind of back out of those dips and try to find a safer path. So it'll spin itself all around and do all sorts of little acrobatics as it mows. Using all-wheel drive, though, is interesting because it gets stuck a lot less than it would if only the rear wheels were moving it. So if one of your rear wheels loses contact with the ground, you still have 2 wheels moving this thing and a powered wheel that can kind of push it out of sticky situations. Now, as I mentioned before, you can set the deck height. It will raise and lower the deck, and the deck is kind of free to move up. So if it runs over an obstacle, the deck can bump up instead of getting caught, which is kind of nice. As far as future maintenance on the machine might go, there's a battery and some wheel motors and a satellite array. That's about it. To talk again about this RTK, how it works, It's using satellite triangulation to basically locate the exact place of where the mower is. So you do have to have the antenna with a clear view of the sky and the mower with a clear view of the sky while it's parked and kind of while it's mowing too. If you have a lot of really thick overhangs, the mower can get a little bit confused, but not too bad. I've noticed it drove under our trees and under eaves and didn't have a hard time at all. Now, what is really nice about this mower is it can mow at night and in the rain, which is essential here because it's always raining. So this mower will just putz along in the rain and mow. It does give you a warning that it can, the raindrops can affect its ability to see stuff and lower its visibility, and also mowing at night can. But I noticed it didn't really have any problem, because if this thing didn't mow during the rain here, it wouldn't mow at all. And it certainly did mow in the rain. I didn't have a problem cutting the grass, because again, we're only taking off a little bit of grass at a time. So how'd this mower really do on our property? Our property is not nice. It's a little rough. It's a work in progress. There's always something that we're trying to get caught up on, or we're behind on, or something just growing out of control. How did it do? For 2 weeks, it did really great, and it did not have an easy time. Our front yard is probably the lumpiest area of our property. Actually, my backfield, I tilled out and smoothed. It's pretty nice back there. The front yard, lumps, bumps, it beats you up when you ride the riding lawnmower. This little thing had its work cut out for it. For the most part, it cut really well. It cut during the rain, and it rained for the first week it was here. It cut at night, which I loved. You look out your window and it kind of spook you because you saw its little headlights. But it mowed in the rain, mowed in the sun, mowed at night, mowed during the day. It never complained about anything. It did get stuck quite a bit. It's pretty low to the ground, and it can get hung up on stuff. And if it falls in a deep enough hole, it just gets stuck and can't get itself out. The app tells you, hey, the mower's stuck, go get it. You go retrieve it. You put it back in the charging station. It's got a little safety to prevent it from being stolen. So once it gets lifted, you got to type in a PIN code. You re-enter your PIN, and once it's charged or ready to get back on schedule, it goes out and mows again. So it did fine, but it did get stuck a lot in our yard. The machine itself did an admirable job. I had to clean it a little bit. It did a good job of avoiding me, of avoiding the dog, of avoiding obstacles. It mows up hills like a champ. It doesn't have any problem with that. It dealt with mud pretty well. Overall, on our property, it did better than I expected. I expected the thing to go out, and the first time we had a good rainstorm, it'd be toast. And my grass would get a foot tall before I could get to it, and the thing would be worthless. But no, it stayed on top of our mowing very well, and it was very easy to set up with that app. So overall, pretty happy with how it did out here. So what did I like about this thing? I'll tell you right now, I like that it saved me time. Mowing on this property is a full-time job, and even just having the half acre in front mowed on a regular basis where the neighbors don't think that I'm lowering their property values or just getting all up in arms because my place is so out of control. It was nice to have it out there doing that. It was very, very helpful in that aspect, just keeping our front end looking decent. And it made some actually kind of nice stripes in the lawn. I don't care about having stripes in my lawn, but it did look really nice. So it did a good job of saving me time, made the lawn look way better than I normally do. So I was pretty happy with that. Price-wise is another thing I like. Now, I didn't buy this thing. I borrowed it from a guy who sells them. He came to us because I work at a mower dealer and said, hey, do you want to sell these? I'm like, I don't know, loan me one, I'll try it out. The price though is the same as a riding lawnmower. So could it replace your riding lawnmower? We'll get to that. But for the price you pay for a riding lawnmower, this thing will do the same job a riding lawnmower does. That's pretty nice. And they make these models that'll do up to 3 acres. This one was made for 3/4 of an acre, but they make them where they'll mow up to 3 acres per day. That's pretty surprising. And frankly, for some of the smaller units, they cost about the same as a high-end push mower. So the price was a huge pro. I think that'd be a great motivation for somebody to buy one of these if they did want to save some time and experiment with a unit like this, because they are kind of new to the market. So I'd still consider it an experiment. Finally, the thing I really liked about this thing is it wasn't a pain in the neck. You know, the app made it super easy to use, very intuitive. It was easy to set up these go and no-go zones in different zones. It was quite pleasurable just walking around with the mower for a few minutes and mapping out the area, kind of getting a chance to look at my lawn. So I found it was really easy to use, and that was a big pro for me because the old style robot lawnmowers or lawn maintainers, you had to bury a wire to use. So having this thing using satellites, pretty cool. How about things I disliked though, because there were some things I disliked. The antenna placement was a huge pain in the neck. I'm sure I'd figure it out eventually. I think the best option for us would have been on the wall, on the side of our house, but we do have to worry about satellite interference. If you live in a really tightly packed neighborhood where houses are close together, you can't put the antenna between the houses or park the mower between the houses because the satellite signals will have a hard time getting to the stuff. So you've got to have it out in the open in an easy place for it to see the sky. That means you have wires laying out. So maybe you'd bury your wires, I guess. It seemed kind of like a pain in the neck. It is what it is. You have to have electricity go into these things and they have to see the sky, but I could just see it being a little fiddly. Like if you want to put it on your roof, you know, the power cord's only so long. So do we run an extension cord off the roof? How are we wiring this thing? I don't know. It kind of irked me a little bit. Of course, you don't want the mower mowing over the wires, so then you have an area that's not mowed that you have to go and weed whack or mow periodically. It just seems a little fiddly, but I guess it goes with the territory, kind of like complaining about putting gas in your riding lawnmower. You know, there's just things you're going to have to do, including maintenance. That was something that kind of seemed like a pain in the neck to me too. It's so wet out here. All that grass kind of got up inside the deck and I had to kind of get in there and clean it out a bit. It never told me I had to, but I could tell that the thing would clog up pretty fast. So if you live in a wet area, it's going to be something where you're going to have to get in there and clean it out on the regular and get your hands all ooky. Now, of course, on a riding mower, you should be scraping your deck out too, and a push mower too, but I don't know. It's something I do every once in a while, I guess. I probably should do it more. This thing just seems like you'd have to clean it out quite a bit more often if you're in a wet location. Finally, the way the machine's constructed, there's a gap between where the blades are and the body is, so it can't really get up against a hardscape and cut all the grass. Now, could a riding mower do that or a push mower? No, it can't. But if we're trying to make our life easier, you know, we got a bit of a gap there, you got to go and weed whack, so it's not really a maintenance-free lawn. Right? This is a small gripe, but I did also notice when I set the no-go zones, I couldn't quite determine how tight I could get it against those no-go zones. So around all my flower beds where I can normally just take my mower and kind of clip right over the edge of the flower bed and get the grass cut, this thing didn't quite get hard up on the edges. It was kind of guessing where the real boundary was. And so there's a lot more edging I would have to do with the weed whacker. Again, small gripe, but something to think about if you have a lot of garden beds. Just being prepared to go out there with your weed whacker once a week probably and cleaning up those edges. So who's this machine good for then? I would say that a person with a nice big wide open lawn, you know, like a golf course basically, without a bunch of trees overhanging you or a lot of eaves you're mowing under. So it'd be very easy to set this thing up with a clear view of the sky and not a lot of obstacles to go around, not a lot of dips in your yard. Basically somebody with a really well already manicured lawn that's been set up well, this would be perfect for them. We know that. That's what these mowers are designed for. But who else are they good for? I would say that they would be good for people like us if you could go through and prep your lawn and get rid of all the big holes and dips so this thing didn't get stuck. It would be perfectly good for somebody with a large area, up to 3 acres on one machine. You know, if you have a big wide open field that you're just tired of maintaining or tired of paying somebody to come out and cut down every year, you could just set this thing up and have it go deal with your field every day. That'd be pretty nice. And then lawn care professionals. I had a landscaper come talk to me while we were initially checking this unit out. And he says, oh boy, that'd be fun for me. I can just take it to a guy's property, have it mow their lawn while I'm doing all the other work. Yes and no. If you had pre-mapped that property, in theory you could do that, but I think you'd spend more time fiddling with the app, setting your boundaries, doing all that stuff, and the mower's kind of slow. It only cuts 14 inches at a time. I think you'd spend more time doing that than you would if you just push mowed a person's property or riding mowed it. But if you had accounts set up and you bought a mower for each account and set those mowers out there and insured them just in case they get destroyed, you could monitor them from your phone and have a whole fleet of mowers out there mowing for you while you're doing other things like counting your money. So I could see a potential here for lawn care professionals to use these instead of a big crew of people, because it's getting harder and harder to find laborers who want to work for next to nothing doing lawn care. This may just be one of those things where the robots replace them and a couple people just manage the robots and go out and maintain them and deal with problems as they come up. That may be the future of lawn care, and I can see how it would be useful for that person. But again, I'm going to reiterate, I don't really think this thing replaces a lawnmower. At least initially, you have to mow your lawn. And if something happens and you don't have a lawnmower, what are you going to do? You're going to be stuck while you're waiting for a wheel motor to show up or a battery, or somebody drives through your driveway while the thing's crossing the driveway and it gets run over, which almost happened to me over the weekend. Well, it's starting to rain like crazy now. So you still at least have to have a push mower laying around and a weed whacker. So I don't think it replaces a lawnmower, but it certainly replaces the time you'd spend mowing the lawn. So if it were me, would I buy one of these? The answer to that is absolutely yes, without a question. And where I would use it is in our back field. I have already set up our back field to be nice and smooth, easy to mow. I could set this thing up, let it mow the back field, and never go back there again to mow. I would love it. Absolutely love to have this thing around there. On our front yard, I also loved using it. It would just take a little more work for me to set that yard up where there aren't many holes and dips and where the water can drain, because I could see if that lawn gets flooded, this thing would get stuck, in big old deep puddles. So I'd have to go out and set that place up a little bit more, but absolutely yes, all day long. I think the next time I have some money saved up to buy a mower, I'm gonna get one of these and try it in the back field to just see if it cuts down on my hours and hours and hours of mowing. Do you hear that rain? That's what this mower's dealing with right now, this torrential downpour, and it's gonna just go out and mow in it. Now let's talk about my conspiracy theory here and then we'll let you go. This thing has cameras on the front, right? And it uses a Wi-Fi signal. Why is that? Why does it need Wi-Fi so badly? Well, I really do think that it's beaming pictures back to the mothership back in China. And I don't think it's for nefarious purposes, but it says it's AI driven, that it can recognize 200 different things. A ball, a child, a branch, tall weeds. Okay, I can see that. But I did notice it also running into things, stopping, making a beeping sound, uploading some images, I believe, somewhere, and then deciding, oh, I know how to get around this, and efficiently and quickly going around it, instead of going around it in the robot way, which is just guessing and checking till the thing's no longer there. I get a feeling it's sending data or pictures back to somebody somewhere in India or in China who looks at the picture, takes control of the thing, moves it around the object, and sets it back on its merry way. Maybe I'm crazy, okay? Maybe that's not what's going on, but it sure felt like that, because just the sudden control it took of itself to move itself around objects was very odd. I didn't get any good video of it, but I watched it happen a couple times. There's my tinfoil hat stuff. That's it. Okay, now we know.